Welcome everybody to Side by Side of one of the first panels and breakouts. We have a goal that you will take away as much as we can provide in terms of value. And I would love to start with getting a pulse of the room. How many in this room are team leaders, have a team, have assistants, or maybe are the assistant as our title of... Okay, cool. So hopefully we will share some tips or give you some ideas. But today we have an awesome panel. We have three fantastic partners that are going to share a little bit about their operation, their businesses, and highlight what has worked and maybe what hasn't worked so you guys could shortcut for your success. So we'll start with Troy. Troy, maybe you can give us a little bit about your business and anything that you feel is appropriate to share in terms of your operation.
Yeah, so we launched on Side's platform 6 months ago, but really kind of came launching in January. We scaled from 2 agents to about 15, I think, in the past 9 weeks. But as far as support staff, we've got a graphic artist that's full-time creative director, and then another individual that's in charge of agent success and kind of helping make sure the agents have the support that they need.
So for those that are looking to scale with agent count, I guess, what are some things that you can highlight quickly based on your quick, 0 to 15 or 1 to 15?
I wasn't ready for that question. I don't know. I mean, real estate's a personal relationship, whether on the transactional side with the consumer or with the real estate agent. So you've got to build and cultivate the leads and the relationship with the agents. It's not something that's just going to happen overnight that the people come and say, yeah, I want to work with you. It does take time. Some of the people that we've been talking to have been 6 months before they actually said yes to making a change, because change is just that hard. So,
absolutely.
Side's got good support, good staff for the recruiting part of it and making the introductions, but it does take cultivating the relationship to get it going.
Absolutely, which all of us partners have our niches in our marketplace. Thanks, Troy. Anthony, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your business.
Sure. I think it's appropriate to understand where I came from. So when I first started residential in 2010, I was with a big box brokerage, and there's about 120 agents in this office, and the top 2 agents in the office had assistants. And I said, oh, I want to be a top person too. So I said, I'm going to get an assistant. And I didn't get a full-time assistant and go through all this craziness that you can expand into later, right, as you grow it. But I had a part-time assistant that was making like $15 an hour. I paid that person cash. They went through a lot of them, and I can go into more detail later. But the point of me telling that story is just on this topic is I went from being a new agent to a top producing agent. Like, everyone's a top producer, right? But it did. I went in like the top 20 and after the first year because I had help. I started off as a buyer's agent as well, and now like everything's grown significantly. Where now we have 8 team members, and we serviced our clients and helped and did over 90 million in business last year, and we've expanded. I'll save some other how we're doing things today differently than back then. But there was a lot of, in other words, you don't need to start off huge. You can start off very small, is something that I want people to know how you can scale it.
Awesome. There's definitely agents in our industry that is the one producing agent with many staff members. And of course, the ones that, for example, that we saw yesterday, Brett, with 60 agents with their brand. So there's many ways that you could do this. And Jeannie, maybe you can give us a unique take on your experience and your current operation.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeannie Irish in San Diego with Costa Modern Properties. What I have done a little differently is I was an assistant. So in 2003, I started helping some top producers in Coronado, and over the next decade, I supported agents in San Diego, then into the Bay Area. and then moved back to San Diego and developed my own business. So I've gone from, and now as an agent, top producing agent.
All of us.
That's what the, anyway. I've hired and fired my own as well, because once you've been an assistant, you know how to cut the BS, right? So I've gone through those growing pains as well. I was a solo agent for most of my career, and in this last year, I have 3 agents on my team. So kind of going through those growing pains, and I spent half the year firing 2 assistants, and so now I'm alone, if anyone's looking. And so, we kind of talked about virtual and then in-house. And if you have any questions about the transition and also what kept me in that position, I think that's what we as leaders have a hard time doing, is keeping talented staff in staff position. And I can answer any questions or go into that in depth as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely have some Q&A at the end in case you guys have specific questions for our panelists here. Maybe we can start with identifying when you're going to need help. At what stage did you guys feel like you needed an additional partner in business, as I would say it? Or maybe not. And I'll go to Troy.
So I've been in the brokerage world for the past 5 years, I think. I started my first brokerage in May of 2017. I've really been on the brokerage side of it, so my sales have been, previous to that. But what I look at is, with the agent, when do we need to provide support? Because a lot of agents do have that mentality. I need an assistant. I need help, right? Where is it that the brokerage can provide the help with it? Whether it's the marketing, making the postcards, because people say, I don't want to make a postcard, and they need an assistant, right? Versus having the help with the creative to make that process happen. So for me, it's always been, where is it? Do you need help with your CRM? Do you need this? It's not always, I need an assistant, right? People get caught up with the term, I need an assistant, versus, okay, you need help with what? You need help with social media. You need help with writing a property description, because, writing a description sucks, right? It takes an hour, and it takes a bottle of wine, and someone still has to edit it afterwards, right? $150, you get the description written professionally. It's grammatically correct. It's perfect, right?
Right.
And so people get caught up in that whole thing of, I need that assistant. So it's no, I need support. So.
Absolutely. I think you bring up a really good point too. Us as partners in a room, at least, we have really 2 layers. We have our team, which maybe you brought over from whichever brand, and also where you've been as the broker partner for your agents. What are you providing on a brokerage level? So, Anthony, when did you identify when you became a top producer? How did you measure that? Was it a production, or was it unit count?
In my mind, I was always a top producer.
It always starts there, manifestation, right?
Absolutely. Actually, that's really important. Well, as I told my story in the beginning, it really was early on. And it was more just because I just didn't want to do certain activities. And in all the different systems of updating the different lead sources, it was just, I just didn't want to spend my time doing that. I wanted to spend my time doing what was the most profitable activity, which of course is being in front of clients. And so I literally hired someone to update leads, is what it came down to. It was really early on, and that was before I was financially a top producer.
So you don't like putting your own lockboxes on?
I do not, although I've had to do it because when the shift happened when COVID happened, I shifted from, this is a good segue into it, I shifted from in-person assistant to virtual assistant. And so that was a big shift, which had me doing more assistant type of work, but still allowing the business to grow. So it worked out from that perspective.
Thanks for sharing that. I think you bring up a really good point where it starts with maybe there's a list of things that you don't feel as adequate or is worth your own time, right? If we spend 6, 8, 10 hours as agents, as the sales rep, and eventually now we're, let's say, being closer to team leads or brokers, there's certain set of tasks that we probably shouldn't do, and how to identify that, write it down, and find the person to support you with that. We'll come back to the virtual part in terms of what you specifically delegate. I would love to pick your brain on that. I'm sure it would be helpful for the audience too. Jeannie, you have a unique take on it because you supported agents. When have you identified when to hire, and maybe share some of those experiences from, I guess, the most recent ones that you've decided to part ways with?
Yeah, I think everyone has their comfort level of how busy you want to be. When I've managed agent offices, I've always said, if you get to a place where we're in SoCal, so we do, large units. If you're doing 25 to 30 units a year, it's a good time to get a strong full-time admin. But what the difference, I think, in being at a company like Side is there's already built-in leverage. When you're at another brokerage, you're like, where do I find a postcard? What's a CRM? You're kind of like connecting the pieces all by yourself, but at least you have a back end now that supports you in certain ways where you can cut out some of those tasks or delegate them faster and delegate them, to somebody to do. But I think pinpointing the activities you don't want to do and then talking to yourself like, do I want to do them because they make me feel uncomfortable or because it's a waste of my time? And I think I keep going back to that as my life changes. When I first became a mom, time was everything. So I needed to have someone just do everything. It was like, and then during COVID, my assistant was still in college, so she would go to Target and she would do all the things that I didn't want to do having a small child at home. So you have to find how that assistant fits into your life. And now, where I could say I'm almost at a busier, higher producing level, I'm like, I kind of don't need it. I can outsource certain things, and obviously certain things are falling through the crack, but there's so much possibility to outsource, and then having our agent success managers and people we can contact every day to just kind of like, air traffic control us. It's totally different than trying to reinvent the wheel every day on your own somewhere else. And sorry, I didn't even know if that was a question, but.
I think it does. For you three, who's the most important person in your life that's currently supporting you in business? And what do they do exactly? If you had to categorize the 2-3 bullet points.
We're talking in addition to our spouse.
It could
that should be the safe first answer, right?
Yeah, it could be the spouse too. But yeah, I think it'll give some context because we all want to run and we want to help as many clients, or in this case, for some of us, our agents succeed. So how are we able to operate and do that? And what are the things that we get support on? So whoever wants to take this.
I'll start. So I do have a new operations director who's been with me for about, since 2007, married. She's my wife, so she came on board and she's done some amazing things with our virtual assistant team that we have now. And there is one virtual assistant who manages the virtual assistants and who has been my virtual assistant. Kind of an interesting story because, and this is how it evolves. We started, last year when we did our 90+ million, we had one virtual assistant that I shared 6 hours, and another agent on my team had 4 hours. It was Martine. And then we told another agent that they should get a virtual assistant, and they said, okay, we'll do one for 2 hours. So we did this 90 million in business with literally 1.2 virtual assistants. And then my new director of operations and wife came on and said, what are you guys doing? You're sharing virtual assistants, but it's, you have someone, what's going on? And she came from PricewaterhouseCoopers as she managed a bunch of people and happened to manage the admin teams. And they did a pooled system where the partners at PricewaterhouseCoopers actually shared admin, if you can imagine that. And so we came up with a new way to do it where we have 3 virtual assistants that are pooled amongst the team members that want to participate. And participation means financial commitment, but that's how we set it up for the team. And it's the idea behind it was, though, just to be very clear, I wanted them to be able to leverage how I was leveraging, because I have my virtual assistant do everything, and I know that's a question coming later, I believe, but I have my virtual assistant do everything. And when I say everything, it's almost everything that's not me meeting a client is when I mean everything. And that just allows me to scale, but it also allows the team members to scale. So the whole idea was like, hey, let's give every team member exactly what I get, and let's train those virtual assistants as well, because that's the hard part, right? It's like one thing is having someone help you, and the other thing is training them. And so it's not so overwhelming. You can just do it in baby steps, right? It's like, oh, I need them to help me with listing coordinating and uploading pictures into MLS. We'll just start there, right? That's better than have them do that versus you do that is the idea. I think I went off the track a little bit, but.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you mentioned listing coordinating.
Yes.
So at what point do you pull that away from a virtual assistant role and make it a full-time role within the brokerage?
That's a great question that I have yet to do. And we struggle with that, frankly, because the challenge is you probably, as you grow, you probably need someone that's focused on listing coordinating, and you need someone that focuses on marketing, and you need someone that focuses on, well, we have a transaction coordinator, that's separate. But to have, the mistake I make is I'm making my virtual assistant do everything, and that's probably just not the best way to do it. But the advantage is with Side, it's like pretty cookie cutter to, oh, I need a flyer. It's like, oh, it's easy, right? And they have training to teach the assistant how to do the flyer. So it's or a brochure or whatever, or an email blast. All that stuff is, Side provides templates for everyone to use, and so that's been how I've managed it. But at some point, it's going to need to change where they're only focused on listing coordinating versus social media, which they do that as well.
And there is a size where you get to where having the listing coordinator in-house does make sense, because the virtual is great, but having the person there that's ordering the sign, the for sale sign to be installed, ordering the pictures, ordering the, all of that stuff being in-house, but it's a certain size that you get to then when you scale to have that role. And, making sure the sign gets ordered down. I mean, the TCs normally help with that stuff too, but it really does have that great thing. And then, social media, I had a person that was running my social media page. I never really liked it. I thought it sucked. There was pictures of boats and coffee, and I like coffee and boats, but it wasn't my social media. It wasn't who I was. But when you're able to get the content from that person, and then the social media person, the subject matter expert in that, they're going to help grow the page versus, hey, assistant, post these pictures.
Definitely. Yeah, you have to be involved. The key is your assistant is there to help you, but not replace you. Because I have certain team members that are thinking, oh, my assistant's going to do everything for me. Well, no, you still need to pick up the phone and make a call, right? To a new lead. That's my biggest pet peeve. Like, hey, you need to do the calls in the beginning, because that's the most important. They can do follow-up, but not, because we have our virtual assistants do follow-up calls, but not the first call. Supposedly that's what's supposed to happen. But the beauty of the Side app, though, is everything is in the app. So when a sign needs to be ordered, all that stuff, the virtual assistant can easily execute on what needs to happen. And so that's something that helps us and helps our virtual team perform at a really productive rate, and then the training as well, because the training is really crucial to making sure your assistant is successful. The cool part about our team last year is Martin, one of the team members, we shared this virtual assistant, and he did like majority of the training, frankly. So that helped me and him, and I trained her on managing listings, and he trained her on how to follow up. So it's a good way to, if you team up with someone on your team and you have both share a virtual assistant, train on what you do best, right? It worked. I was always focused on listings, so I needed help with that. He was always working with buyers and follow up, so he trained her on that, and that turned out to be very helpful. And now she's training all the new virtual assistants on all those topics. So that's how we did it.
I think something powerful you said is you have to spend the time to train your people, whether it's sales or ops. In this case, it's ops, and we do have our respective strengths. So that's why your partner and yourself trained on the aspects that you needed help with. So what about you, Jeannie? What support items do you delegate first, or do you need the most help with that is top of mind for you so you could succeed?
I think one common thing that may be sexist to bring up, but as a woman in this role, it's a very different experience, because I've supported high-producing male agents, but they've had a very strong spouse at home that ran the show. But when you're the woman, like, you need that high-powered person to run the show as well, because we're constantly battling those two lives, right, Hillary? And Mel Sophia. So it's like sitting here thinking, I'm like, I don't mind doing lockboxes, I don't mind doing photos in the MLS, but I need someone to like go set up a table for me in a pop-up tent and deliver 100 postcards, and those are the activities that I need support for, because I'm like ordering T-ball sneakers and all the other things. So to me, it's like a /personal /admin is what my biggest, like the most successful assistant I've had has been that role. Like, she was a girl still in college who I paid $13 an hour under the table, from San Diego State, and she was the most successful assistant I had. After she left and started her life, I had this assistant who supported somebody for 10 years and came with this like 3 times the budget. But I was like, she's just gonna blow my socks off because she did this for these agents I know in San Diego. And it was complete opposite. So I realized through that transition was, I need time, I need support, so I have to figure out how I do that. And so I don't mind doing, and Joey and I kind of talk about, I don't mind the real estate side of things and the people things and the request for repairs. I don't mind that part. It's all the other tasks that I need help with, which is hard for me to have a virtual, because, like, again, I'm having an Easter egg hunt. So this morning I was ordering 2,000 Easter eggs and doing all of those tasks that if I had either a supportive spouse, I'm looking for that too. A supportive spouse, or or another kind of like interny kind of girl, right? So I'm always in the hunt of that, and I think at some point I'll scale enough to have a virtual that we're streamlining more tasks, but having that, if I can offer anything just from being in that support role, watching how those households run, having a supportive spouse is going to be your best hire. Like, that is your number one hire to succeed in this business. I think that's your best assistant. That's your best, mover.
I can't agree more.
Yeah.
So, and I think what we had just talked about was, what are we, in terms of tasks, looking for support in? In your viewpoints, what is the presentation, or what is the vision that you're also giving your partner, your assistant, or your support staff, that they could grow into as a part of your organization? What are some things that you guys share, that whether it's your vision of where the company is going to be, or what considerations are you taking in for them in terms of where they want to be in their career? Any highlights on that?
I'll go first. I think that's changed because my the college age girl was like, hey, we're going to grow this in together, and so you can be an agent. So I took her on, like I said, in that intern capacity of teaching her everything for her to grow. When she left and went a different way, the gal who I hired next, who had all the experience, I knew her capacity was like paper pushing. Like, she was never going to be front of house. She was never going to be an agent. But I accepted that because I thought, well, then my whole back end is just going to be uplifted, so I can just be in front of clients. So that's shifted. But every hire, whether it's an agent or an assistant, it's always like sharing the vision, which is, I think, again, not to be like a side commercial, but it's so different to like not be a team name, like Jeannie Irish team. Then you're like, at some point, these guys are going to leave me because it's my name on the back of their shirt versus Costa Modern Properties as, Marisol or whoever. So I think sharing that vision is so much easier to sell now for any agent or assistant coming on, because it's not just like you're on my team, it's you're part of this brand. So just kind of like sharing that right at the beginning and making sure our obviously moral compass and all that kind of stuff is online.
All right. Any long tenured support assistants?
Yes, so it's a great question. It's really, I think, super crucial that you treat your assistant, whether they're virtual or in-house, as you would an agent, right? That's the same experience they need to have and the support to grow. So I've always, my first assistants became agents. Well, one was because it was two things. I was a horrible boss, which I admit to, because it was something new for me, and she was a horrible assistant. So it was like, oh my gosh. She's like, I want to sell. I'm, oh, thank God. You should go sell. And she's great in sales. So it's really important to have like a career path for them. Even in the virtual side, our virtual assistants are not here in the U.S. And so, but we're creating an atmosphere of support and growth for them. My first virtual assistant is now managing virtual assistants, which, I didn't know that was going to happen. Truthfully, I didn't know that would be where it would go. But, I did we definitely paid them, our virtual assistants, more than what the industry is in their country, what they get paid. And so it's really important, holidays, they would work anytime you want them to work. But I was like, no, you're taking days off, paid days off, just like as if you were working here. So I think it was really important to treat them just like you would treat an employee in the U.S. or an agent joining your team and offering growth opportunities. So it becomes, they're not here, and they're not becoming agents, so it's a little bit different. But I've always had that mindset of, hey, go get, on the assistants that we had in-house, and we just brought on a new inside salesperson who's doing calling, and we're encouraging her to get licensed because then she can do more activities, do more on the ground work as well, like lock boxes. So it's there's different ways it's going to go, and I know it sounds like, wow, he has 3 virtual assistants. I mean, the reality is I wrote it down because this is great. I had my assistant tell me what are the costs to have an assistant, a virtual assistant? Like, what would you expect? Does that sound interesting for people to hear? Like, how much would you think it would cost for some of these folks? Does anyone want to hear that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wrote it down. If you want someone with 0 experience, virtual assistant, $5 an hour, virtually. Say that?
What country?
Philippines. And they're amazing. I would say. Now, if you want someone with general admin experience, maybe not real estate experience, it's probably going to be about 8. Is what she told me. And if you want someone that can call and have good admin experience, then it might be around 9. So you're looking anywhere between, probably 5 is a little low to start someone, I think, just knowing what $5 is.
And Anthony, just to clarify, is this hiring direct or through an agency?
Those numbers are probably direct. And so here, circling back, I did get agents through agencies, but the agencies I've learned don't treat the VAs very well. Like they're like, well, if you're sick, you still have to come to work, or work, or even if you have a fever. It was like they didn't treat them very well, and I didn't like that because it's just not who I am, and so I chose to go away from them. Like all of my virtual assistants quit because they were being treated so badly by the agency. And there are a bunch of agencies out there, and I can give you a list of them. And this is from my virtual assistant. She puts together a list. I literally have her do everything. So if you guys want that list, we can share it with you. But I just think it's really important to really treat them well, because they'll stay. Because the last thing you want to do is train somebody, and then they leave because they get a little bit better pay and it's a better atmosphere. The grass is always greener. It's like, no. I want my virtual team to stay and grow with us. And we're gonna, as a leader and with my director of operations, we're gonna have to come up with a way to help them grow and feel fulfilled as well, because they have their aspirations and dreams as well. Even though they're not here, they want to do different things, and we encourage it, right? Whatever they want to do. So it's a tough question on the virtual side. On the in-house side, it's a little bit easier because they can learn how to do real estate and get their license. And I encourage that. Like, I don't want to keep anyone from growing. And one of my literally my top performing agent on my team started off as my assistant, even though we were not a good match as a manager and assistant.
Thanks for that. Maybe we can share 1 to 3 tips in terms of where you guys are headed, or the support that you need, or if they're looking to hire their first assistant, what should they be looking for?
One of the things that I like to ask an assistant, why real estate? And there's more along the lines of the ones that are, a licensed real estate agent. Because if they're looking to be an assistant, there's something not working for them as the real estate agent. And the answer that really scares you is, oh, I love $1 million listing. Like, okay, yeah, it's not normal real estate, right? So what do oh, I love going and seeing houses. Okay, it's not what the role is, So really understanding what the person, like what they're looking for in their career when you're hiring someone is really important. The answers that you get will really help you understand and, make the decision with that. The other thing I think is really important is you've got to be willing to delegate and then let them get through it. Like, set the deadline of when something needs to be done, but try not to be micromanaging, because that's the first thing that you're going to do to lose somebody good, is by not necessarily knowing how to manage that team or that IA or whatever the role is that you're working with. If you're not able to articulate what you need or how you need help working, you're going to fail.
Thanks for that. Anthony, Jeannie?
What was the question?
Some tips. Hiring.
Oh, hiring, yeah. So this goes back to my I firmly believe in just doing versus overthinking, overcomplicating things, sometimes it's to my detriment, and sometimes it works out for me, because I do a lot of things on feeling. Can you imagine? I'm a salesperson, right? I do everything on feeling, right? Of course I do. So the process to find a good assistant, and you can interview virtual assistants, and I have interviewed virtual assistants. I literally go on feeling. Of course, you're going to ask the standard questions, what they're looking for. Have they ever helped anyone in this capacity before? And that's always good to have some experience in that capacity. But quite literally, my virtual assistant although she had some experience with it, she was really newly trained with me, and I don't mind that because then you know what? They're going to do exactly what you want to do. And the virtual assistant team that we have are all from the Philippines, and they're amazing because they're very literal though. So if you say something but you don't mean that, you better correct it and communicate it exactly how you want it. But they will do anything and everything you tell them, which is quite phenomenal. And they'll even create the checklist to follow, right? That you're like, hey, create a checklist for everything you do, by the way. And they create it in Asana, not you or me. I think, the standard interview questions actually Side furnishes the interview questions, actually. You can get those interview questions through Side. Just ask your business manager. There's nothing like terribly complex that I've created around it. It's more of how I interact with that person, understanding their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. And even if they had no like previous experience, that didn't bother me as much as where they wanted to grow and the feeling I got from them, which is hard over Zoom. But it's better to make a decision, and then for me, like I just say, I'll make a decision. Let's see how it works out. If it doesn't work out, then we switch. It's not what many operators will tell you, but that's just what worked for me.
Thanks for sharing that. Jeannie?
What was the question? No, I'm kidding.
Hiring tips. Yeah, you got it.
No, I think know what you're hiring for. Especially in the day and age we live in, everybody wants like a posse, but they don't know what they do. So I really think knowing what your skill set is, and then hiring as like the old KW models, like hiring your opposite, but really defining the role. My coach said something to me recently, was like, you're in the castle and you have to create a moat around people either on your team and your assistants. Don't let them in too much, because we get so comfortable, and maybe this is also as like a female, it's like you become so like friends and family, and they, you get so tight that you can't create those boundaries and have that defined work relationship. And ultimately, yeah, I should be in this castle, and you are part of the family, but you're also my employee. So I'm working on that. But I think really understanding what you're hiring for, knowing your skill set, what you don't want to do, and then really defining that role. And then also don't hire an assistant if you're not ready to pay for an assistant. I get all the time, I used to teach like an assistant class at KW, and people are like, what do you pay? Do you think I could find someone for like $9? And this is like in San Diego. I was like, no, I got lucky because I had an intern, but it's a full-time job. So that's what kept me as an assistant for so long, was because I was making, this is like 2004, anywhere and depending if it was here or the Bay, it was like 45 to 90,000 a year, but the people I worked for, made a lot of money. So it offsetted. I earned what I made. But as agents, it's like, oh, I want, for $35,000 a year, I can get an assistant. Like they're going to be gone, and you're going to train them, and they're going to be gone in 3 weeks or 3 months. They're going to get poached from someone else or go to EXP or whatever. Like hire and pay for it if you want someone long term, just like you would an agent. You have to treat them like gold if you want them to stay long term, and continue to understand like people have kids, people grow, and supporting that role, and also just paying for it. And it wasn't until I actually, quick thing, I left the Bay to come back to San Diego to start my career, and my boss hired me for what I was making less. He's like, I had to pay you nothing so that you would finally leave me. And then that's when I left. Like I was like, well, if he would have kept paying me like $70,000, I would have stayed for God knows how long, right? And then so I left, and then sold 20 units my first year as an agent. So it was like he was strong enough to be like, I know you're the best thing since sliced bread as an assistant, but I have to let you go because I'm holding you back from growing. So paying them, but also understanding like what their capacity is and talent is too.
Thanks for that.
I think people don't realize too, 35,000 or 40 or 50 isn't just the final number. There's, the employer contributions, there's medical insurance, there's, gas mileage, you're going virtual, are you paying taxes to the Philippines, or, is it through, the agency? So the route that you go, the number is the number, right? But, you get into it the other times and it's, oh, I worked 42 hours this week, and I need another day off. Like, you come into it differently, so.
Yeah. Two of the tips my mentor has given me is ask the question specifically, do you want to be an agent? Because you probably want someone that's going to be more longer tenured in the position for an ops. So I specifically look for someone that's going to stay in that position a little longer. And then the other is, I wrote down. The other is hire by the day. So as much as we look at whether it's a $35,000, $70,000 investment for the year, you hire by the day, by the week, and you have very clear standards of what needs to be executed. You have consistent conversations so that there's nothing lingering that's left unsaid for you to be able to work hand in hand with your partner. So we have couple minutes, so would love to field some questions from the audience if you guys have any for any of our 3 partners here. Yep.
I have a question. I'm Sonia. I'm Aaron Blake. Nice to meet you guys.
Hey, Sonia.
I have a question about retention. So whether it be a virtual assistant or in my case, a full-time ski patroller that's a 24-hour assistant for me, how can I make him feel part of my culture and want him to stay? So it's he doesn't want to be an agent, so it's more about retaining these people in these part-time.
Sure. So just to repeat the question, just in case people missed it, the question was around retention and what's your tips on retention in terms of someone that I'm assuming you want them to stay.
I want him to stay. I don't want to go through this training again. Yeah, I want him to stay.
Right.
And you said it's a ski patroller, so he's seasonally got more work than other times. That's a challenge. But it comes down to culture. Are you helping them improve their life and what they're doing? Because everybody wants to get back what they're putting in.
That's part of the question. How do you make a part of the culture? A lot of the work's virtual.
You have them train a virtual assistant abroad. So you don't have to train them. I'm not kidding either. Like, why fight something that's not going to work out long term? Have them train a virtual assistant for you and keep them both on, because your virtual assistant is going to be less expensive by a large margin probably. That's what I would do. And I came from only having it. I went from having an assistant in-house to only virtual. And, there are certain parts that were hard, obviously, because I had to put a lockbox on or whatever. But that's what I would do. Because but he's right. The culture is going to keep him, but
you got to make them feel part of it.
Part-time,
though. Even if it's 20 hours a week, it's 20 hours a week that you have the ability to make them feel like they're part of the team and really giving back and being a part of it.
Yeah, I think like any relationship, they want to be heard. What comes up to mind is, everyone has a different love language. So if you can figure out and have a consistent conversation about what they want from you, or they feel like they're given a platform or a place to really share candidly what they need, it might not be compensation. It might be just more free time, more time with family, kids. So I think it's just going to be a conversation that's consistent so you can really show that you care. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right here?
What are your thoughts on using international virtual assistants regarding security of your information? So you're giving them access to all of your files or your emails, and they're sending things on behalf of you.
Yep. So the question is security working with international virtual assistants. You want to take this one?
No, I want to put it to you.
Okay. I actually have a virtual assistant that has been with my company ever since 2016. So I think like any relationship, it's probably an ongoing conversation of an ongoing relationship that you build trust with. I think even though the person could be virtual, you probably could get a pretty good idea of this person's values, this person's intentions. I don't think there's anything that's perfect, though. I think that could go with someone that's physically here or someone that's international. So, but that's what I would say.
Yeah, I'd say that too. I mean, you've got to watch whoever you have, whether they're in the office every day. I mean, did they have access to your email or wherever they're at, right? So monitoring the outbox or the sent items, if they're sending from your personal email, is something you should keep an eye on, no matter where they are.
Yeah.
Well, in relation to that is also the safe handling of your contacts. So you're giving them information, they can contact all of your clients. What's to stop them? Are there any tricks of the trade so that they don't sort of go off under the sunset to the next job with all of your contacts?
Good question. The question is, what about your contacts? Your database is your business, right? That's where the value is. I think it's like any agent that has access to it too. I think support staff, whether here or international, probably if you run a team or you have a bigger operation, there's probably multiple people that have access to your email, into your CRM, into your passwords. I think it's probably all treated the same, where it's earned within the business, your trust, your credit card, for example, to utilize. So I think it's just earned, but there's no 100% proof of what if this person runs away with the information. So.
That'll happen even as a hired, like in your city, your girl you went to high school with. Like, that'll happen at any point. And going back to the boundaries, as soon as like someone is in, I'm like, here's my, Instagram login, here's, everything. If they wanted to blackmail me, if they wanted to steal my Target shopping cart, whatever, it's there. And so as soon as you have that red flag, and I like the hiring by the day, because this last hire, it was like a 6-month contract, thank God. And so I like hiring and keep it like short term, and then, okay, we can keep extending, because we fall in love with people. We're in sales too, so, we're lovable or whatever. So we fall in love so fast, and we give everything, and then we just like keep your red flags keep on it, and don't rely on them so much that you're not looking at your sent, you're not looking at your DMs, all of that. And because then in a second, you have to go back and change everything.
Yeah.
And that'll happen, like I said, from someone you know in your whole life, right?
I do agree it's slightly more complicated, because I think what you're thinking of too is what goes into the contract,
yeah.
right? So non-solicitation, non-defamation, things like that. But for an international person that's working for you, it's which law is it under, right?
Yeah.
So those are things probably that we could think about and brainstorm a lot more in detail. Yeah. Maybe we'll take one more question. I know we are behind, but any other questions? We'll go right here. Yeah.
Jeannie, do you have an application that you're willing to share, and maybe a list of duties that you require of them?
I'm going to have Anthony's virtual assistant send me that list.
I wrote down a list of things that I have my virtual assistant do. I don't know if you want to see that, but
Yeah.
Lockboxes.
I have them talk to people I know. Like that's part of the application.
Virtually.
Is they talk to my escrow rep. They talk to my coach. They talk to people that know me and know my personality, know, whatever. That's part of the application process for me. And then really figuring out, and that list changed, like I said, whether I postpartum or post-divorce or whatever that list is in my life, then I identified this is what I need help with. And that's how, but I would love a task list too.
Yeah, I can share a job description with you too.
Yeah.
But I have my virtual assistant do many things, from prepping CMAs to prepping offers. And of course, I do the final touches on all these things, from setting appointments, calling the vendors and doing all that, ordering signs, managing social media, email blast, email marketing, lead follow-up, which is a big one, because we can never follow up enough. But almost anything you can think of that's me not engaging with a client, I want my virtual team to do.
Also Lockbox. That's our cue.
That's our cue.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to our
Yeah, thank you.